More exclusive Naruto Lemon videos coming out on my Boosty. You can support me by subscribing. Link in description. Description: to avoid unnecessary parental moralizing, Sasuke always hired a significant other for the traditional family week. However, his deception was constantly exposed. Will he be able to outwit his family this time, or will he still have to submit to the will of his parents? Chapters 4 to 7. Enjoy watching. Part 4. The rest of the photo session went quite calmly. Under the strict guidance of Karen, the guys visited the Café de la Régence, visited Monceau Park, walked along the sea coast, visited the tombs of the pharaohs, and admired the grandeur of the Egyptian pyramids. And all this under the cheerful, sometimes poisonous, comments of Karen. All the girls' attempts to get the guys to kiss again were in vain. Having screwed up once, the guys were on alert all the time, expecting a trick. This slight tension hanging in the photo studio made it difficult to work. The professionalism of the photographer sounded the alarm. The pictures won't look natural if they keep this up. Karen tried to defuse the situation, to make the guest clients relax, but all in vain. She was already thinking about adding alcohol to their coffee, and even figured out how to do it without arousing suspicion, but Sasuke suddenly announced that the photographs would be enough for them. Uzumaki's relieved sigh killed the girl's last hope of convincing clients of the need for additional photographs. Tired? Sasuke asked as they approached the car. No. Naruto shook his head. Naruto got into the car and leaned back in the comfortable chair. Neither a 2-hour trip to the store, nor a 3-hour photo shoot tired him as much as a warm farewell to the cheerful Karen. It seemed that the girl did not want to let them go at all and was sophisticatedly looking for more and more new reasons to detain her dear guests. Quickly realizing that Sasuke did not want to talk to her at all, Karen switched to Uzumaki. She invited him to come visit again, promised that next time there would definitely be coffee and cake, that it was absolutely not necessary to take photographs, that she was absolutely not against sitting in friendly company, chatting about life. Lost in thought, Naruto did not immediately notice that they had already arrived somewhere. He was distracted from his thoughts by the smell of fresh baked goods. It was so spicy and appetizing that it was simply impossible to think about anything else. Only now did Uzumaki realize that he was hungry. He is so hungry that now he even imagines food. Blinking a couple of times, he finally realized that he was not imagining food after all. There was a hot dog hanging in the air right in front of him. How can this be? Naruto looked at Sasuke. The Uchiha handed him a hot dog. So big, delicious, and apparently warm. Thank you. Uzumaki thanked a little surprised. I thought you didn't recognize fast food. Why do you think so? Sasuke was sincerely surprised, and not without pleasure took a bite of a small piece of his bun. Fast food is fast, tasty, and convenient. Yeah, it's also filling. Naruto smiled and began to eat with appetite. He's with me, Sasuke thought, watching with a slight half-smile as Uzumaki tried to cope with the still too hot dog. I could be happy. But he is too tense, and even I cannot call our relationship friendly. Judging by the perky lights that flash in his eyes from time to time, he behaves completely unnaturally, although how can I talk about this if I don't know him at all? We need to destroy this invisible wall dividing us as quickly as possible. We need to get to know each other better. He reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a bottle of water. After taking a couple of sips, he motioned for the Uzumaki to drink water, which the blonde did not even think of refusing. Having thrown the crumpled paper bag into the trash can with a well-aimed throw, Sasuke started the engine again, and the car obediently moved off. Where are we going now? Have fun. Naruto frowned, trying to understand what the Uchiha meant by having fun. But nothing suitable came to mind. And this was alarming. The Uzumaki looked out the window, trying to guess the train of thought of the driver focused on the road, but the avenues and streets they passed did not want to reveal Sasuke's plans. At some point, it seemed to Naruto that he was driving through a completely unfamiliar part of the city, but after another turn the area became recognizable again. Completely confused, Uzumaki was about to clarify some questions, but the car suddenly stopped. We'll have fun here. The Uchiha turned off the engine and got out of the car. Naruto raised an eyebrow in surprise, but still hurried to go outside. Looking around, he was surprised to find that they had stopped next to the main entrance to the amusement park. But he never expected this. Sasuke grinned. He still managed to surprise the Uzumaki. Let's go. The Uchiha let the blonde go ahead. Naruto looked around curiously. He no longer remembered the last time he was here. However, since the time of his carefree childhood, more than one restoration and repair has taken place here. It was no longer the small, cozy square that boasted a couple of rides and playgrounds. Now it was a park. A large, noisy labyrinth of entertainment and relaxation, decorated with numerous still green flower beds, tall trees and spreading bushes. Above the trees, reminiscent of summer with its colorful booths, the Ferris wheel rises majestically. Behind it, lonely as a beacon, the Tower of the Fall can be seen. A little to the left, somehow hidden behind the lush crowns of pine trees, a roller coaster gives an unforgettable experience. Pines imperceptibly replace slender cypresses. Evergreen trees proudly stretched upwards fail to hide the lonely windmill. Her sweeping wings beckon with their originality. This, Sky Master, is not entertainment for the faint of heart. Well, Uzumaki mentally drawled. I hope we don't go there. A little to the right they offer tests of courage in the fear room. Trading stalls disguise themselves as cute wooden houses, and now with the most innocent look they offer vacationers all kinds of services. Light beige wooden benches with black, spiral-twisted metal handles are stretched out between the stall houses. At the next turn, a shooting gallery challenges your accuracy, behind which they immediately offer you a fun room to cheer yourself up. The path imperceptibly widens and unexpectedly ends up at a busy racetrack. And again, there are two paths that will certainly lead to new adventures and entertainment, which are so nice to look at, but somehow scary to come into contact with. And Naruto was not averse to walking around, looking around, and even riding something where he didn't need to gain height. Let's go back. Sasuke had already decided what they would do. The Uzumaki shrugged. Why not come back? If an Uchiha wants to ride something, why bother him? Naruto didn't take into account only one thing, he would have to ride too. The first attraction that Sasuke decided to visit was a roller coaster. A new set of applicants was just walking there, and the Uchiha, deftly overtaking some couple, almost forcibly dragged the Uzumaki to the last free seat. Naruto wanted to be indignant, but didn't have time. The yellow-green caterpillar abruptly took off, and the blonde automatically grabbed someone else's seat, not really trusting the seat belts. The caterpillar soared up. Uzumaki grabbed the seat tighter. He didn't notice the descent. The neighbors squealed enthusiastically, anticipating the second level. They rose higher and higher above the ground. Oddly enough, Naruto didn't have time to notice this. The caterpillar also seemed to be afraid of heights. As soon as she reached the top of the mountain, she immediately rolled down. And it wasn't scary. Fun, but not unpredictable enough to make you scream on the next sharp descent. The caterpillar managed to twist itself so that now its voluntary captives looked at the upturned earth with delight and wild squealing. Naruto slowly succumbed to the delight and joy reigning around him. All the thoughts that were weighing on him gradually flew out of his head, and the restraint he had worked through with great difficulty suddenly decided to take a couple of days off and enjoy a well-deserved rest. Really, when was the last time he rested? When will such an opportunity arise again? He's on vacation. You just need to relax, enjoy these sharp ascents and dizzying descents. Unfortunately, by the time Uzumaki realized this, the caterpillar, already slowing down, was traveling in a straight line. For the second round? Sasuke asked, grinning. He still seemed unfazed, as if he hadn't just been on the funniest ride in the park. And only his excitedly burning eyes betrayed his real attitude to what was happening. Come on. Naruto smiled radiantly, which surprised the Uchiha a little. I didn't even expect him to agree. This is simply wonderful. The crowd was noisy with displeasure, seeing off the painted caterpillar. On its next journey, the children in the front seats shouted with delight. The caterpillar soared up and immediately slid down. Having come to her senses, she immediately hurried to go upstairs, proudly, but quickly, so as not to have enough time to admire the entire park. She rushed along the new, conquered height, and, as if remembering something important, went down. It was noisy, fun, lightning fast, unforgettable. But Naruto would refuse to repeat this a third time. However, Sasuke didn't offer it. Under the relieved sigh of the crowd, they left their last car and went down a small metal staircase to their native solid ground. A brightly painted train passed by, honking merrily. The children were glued to the windows with delight. Someone waved their hand in a friendly manner, someone made faces. Uzumaki looked at the miracle train, which did not need rails at all to move around the park, and shook his head. Do you want to ride it? Sasuke asked, a little surprised. No, what are you talking about? The Uchiha chuckled. Then let's go there. He vaguely waved his hand towards the mill. No. Naruto was not at all attracted by the idea of hanging upside down at a height of 18 meters. Sky Master was Gaara's favorite ride. A friend buzzed Uzumaki's ears about how cool it was, that he should definitely try it himself, but Naruto constantly refused, and was not going to change his mind now. It's better there. He, without thinking, waved his hand in the direction of the Tower of Fall. Uzumaki's initiative pleased Sasuke. In addition, it did not matter in what order to visit the attractions. They will visit everything anyway. And it's even good to walk, even if the impressions of the roller coaster settle down a little. Fine. Naruto belatedly remembered that Gaara had talked about the Tower of Fall. Nothing special, said the friend. They will only lift you about 20 meters and then drop you down. No turns with your head hanging upside down, no twists, nothing. No, of course, this is also fun and unforgettable, but still compared to Sky Master. 20 meters. Naruto thought in horror. I have to climb a whole 20 meters. And then fall down no less. The attraction was getting closer and closer. Already one could hear frightened and enthusiastic screams, sighs and gasps of impressionable people who never dared to go for a ride, quiet prayers of superstitious grandmothers who so recklessly allowed their adored grandchildren to ride once. But I suggested it myself, so I can't refuse. It looks like they're having fun. He looked at how the ring with passengers was rapidly approaching the ground. When did I become so afraid of heights? Do you want to get an unforgettable experience? A pretty girl in a nice park uniform drove up to the guys, cheerfully waving tickets. Gray-blue skates, apparently, were not included in the standard clothing set, but did not spoil the appearance at all. Having received an affirmative nod, she continued enthusiastically. You simply must visit the Sky Master and the Tower of the Fall. You can purchase your tickets right now and you won't have to wait in line. We'll take it. Sasuke agreed without hesitation. Maybe we should not? Uzumaki mentally prayed. Shut up, coward! He immediately corrected himself. Relax and have fun, or try. The closer the tower was, the more the blonde doubted that he would be able to ride it. Lord, why am I so afraid of heights? 2 tickets to the tower, and that's all. Naruto grabbed the Uchiha by the sleeve of his shirt. That's it for now. Whatever you say. Sasuke grinned. And you should also take a ride on the cable car. The girl was not at all embarrassed by the fact that they were distracted from her. She continued to chatter happily as she did her job. If you want something romantic, then be sure to ride the Ferris wheel. And also... Thank you? Sasuke interrupted her restrainedly and coldly. If we need anything, we will find you. Have a nice day. The girl responded friendly, and immediately moved on to the next potential clients. The guys approached the ride just as it began to rise again. Lonely, enthusiastic cries were accompanied by the dissatisfied grumbling of the old technician who was launching all this. Disgrace. Those who want to take a ride, please put your tickets on the machine. he ordered grumpily. Will you attach it? Naruto snorted, trying to take his mind off the upcoming trip. It would be better if he said feed him. Sasuke chuckled. There are 12 seats. The technician continued to grumble. If you are 13th, your ticket will not be accepted. Naruto sighed. They were 8th. Perhaps it was even better this way. The sooner it all started, the sooner it would end. Take your seats. I didn't have to repeat it twice. In just a few minutes all the seats were taken. People looked around happily, anticipating a fast flight. The seat belts, silently lowered, thereby chaining the passengers to their middle chair. The tower began its ascent. She rapidly gained speed and height, which greatly frightened Naruto. He gripped the metal handles tighter and closed his eyes. Sasuke leaned back in his chair and smiled. He loved heights, loved extreme rides, and took great pleasure in this crazy speed. Now he was happy. The tower climbed to the very top and quickly flew down. It was unexpected. Scary and fun at the same time. The feeling of weightlessness does not last long, just a few seconds. And it's even somehow offensive, but still indescribably wonderful. It was cool. Naruto enthusiastically shares his impressions, jumping from his seat. Sasuke nodded in agreement. Shall we repeat? No. Let's go somewhere else instead. Somewhere else? The Uchiha asked with a sly smile. Let's go to. Only not on the Sky Master, Uzumaki hastened to warn. And where to? Well. Without thinking about the further route, the guys turned right and slowly walked along a sparsely populated alley, quietly arguing about which attraction they would visit next. The alley quietly led them to another entertainment area. Here, colorful lights flashed, music played, children made noise, and famous cartoon characters handed out leaflets. Let's go to the shooting range, Uzumaki unexpectedly suggested. This is a pure scam. This is a funny scam. The one who knocks down the most targets chooses the next attraction. Agreed. Finding a shooting range turned out to be not so easy. Of course, small tents with beer cans arranged in a triangle were encountered at every turn, but the guys quickly got bored with this game. Unnoticed by themselves, they entered the central alley. It was especially noisy and crowded here. Children roller skated, passing cyclists honked cheerfully, and bright rental cars beeped abruptly. The shooting range we were looking for was found at a bend. Between two cypress trees reaching towards the sky stood a small stone house. It was completely unlike any other structure in the park, which is what attracted attention. It was cool and dark inside. Several old lamps dimly illuminated the spacious room. It was quite quiet here. Only the radio quietly shared the latest news. Naruto walked over to the long lacquered countertop, on which lay a stack of business cards, and lightly tapped his fist on the shiny surface. I'm hearing you. Where this gray-haired old man with such a good-natured face emerged from remained a mystery to Uzumaki. Seeing the owner of the shooting gallery, the blonde was slightly confused. 2 guns, please, the Uchiha intervened. 10 rounds each, Naruto added. The old man nodded and disappeared into the back room. Sure? Sasuke thoughtfully examined the upcoming targets. Certainly. Naruto was 100% confident in himself. Or, he smiled slyly. Do you need more attempts? Here, young people. The owner of the shooting range, limping a little, walked up to the table and put 2 guns on it. Now there are 5 rounds of ammunition. If they run out, I'll reload. Choose. He gestured generously to the targets, a huge number of all kinds of toys, under which hung small paper squares. You need to shoot at these pieces of paper, the old man explained. If you hit it, the toy is yours. Good luck. Sasuke chuckled. Get into that unfortunate white square? What could be simpler? It's so elementary. He took the gun, which seemed too cumbersome to him, grabbed it more comfortably, chose the nearest target, and taking aim, fired. Got it? Naruto carefully watched the Uchiha's actions, but did not understand whether his attempt was successful. Unfortunately, no. The old man threw up his hands guiltily. Try again. Your turn. Sasuke seemed not to be upset. Yes. The Uzumaki twirled the gun in his hands, then looked at the orderly row of toys, but he didn't like any of them. Grunting with displeasure, he turned sideways and, without really aiming, fired. Bravo! The old man returned with a shot target and a gray-blue teddy bear. Your prize. And you said it was a divorce? Naruto whispered to the Uchiha. The brunette just smiled. He wasn't going to lose. Let's shoot at the same time, he suggested. Let's. Uzumaki was fired up by the idea. On the count of 3. 3. The old man laughed. And it was also unforgettably fun. Shoot, and not know whether you hit it or not, and still try again and again, hoping for the best and expecting the worst. And you continue to shoot excitedly, not noticing that nothing is happening anymore, that the cartridges have run out, and only the old trigger continues to crack with displeasure. The old man, limping, went first to the left, towards where Sasuke was aiming. Whistling in surprise, he brought him the 4 toys he had won. Then he walked to the right, and was no less surprised to find 3 down targets. It's been a while since I've had clients like this. He scratched the back of his head, and confronted Uzumaki with his winnings. Meanwhile, the clients glared at each other. Equally. How can this be? It's some kind of mistake. Misunderstanding. Reload. Forgetting about politeness, the guys ordered at the same time, putting the guns on the table. The old man doesn't swear. Smiling, he takes the guns, does something with them under the table, and a couple of minutes later returns them to the customers. This time the guys limit themselves to a short nod, and without further ado, they start shooting. Aim, shoot, turn around a little and shoot again, turn the gun a little to the side and shoot, and again, and only then realize that the cartridges have already run out. And again the old man shuffles first to the left, and brings 2 knockdown toys. Then, sighing heavily, he limped to the right. Having carefully examined the targets, he returns holding only 1 trophy in his hands. Do you want to shoot some more? No. Sasuke shook his head. Let's go to. Naruto just sighed in response. Today luck was clearly not on his side. You choose. Uzumaki collected the prizes he had won and suddenly smiled. But first I need to give these toys to someone. For what? The Uchiha was surprised. What do you mean why? If I leave them with me, they will push me out of my own apartment. I don't need toys. What makes you think that a child would agree to take something from you? Nobody will allow them to do this. Having said goodbye to the old man with a nod, Sasuke left the shooting range. Naruto followed him. Why? You just have to smile. Look. Not even 5 minutes had passed, and Uzumaki managed to give out all the prizes, even those that the Uchiha won. Some parents tried to refuse, but they couldn't resist the blonde's charming smile. That's all. Where shall we go? Not on Sky Master, please, not on Sky Master. Naruto repeated tensely to himself. Sasuke looked at the blonde thoughtfully. Choosing an attraction is, of course, good. But how difficult it is to do this. The Uchiha would love to ride something extreme, but it would only bring momentary satisfaction and would not provide any benefit to the future. After all, initially the trip to the park had only one goal: to get closer to the Uzumaki. Find out something about him, tell him a little about yourself. But they didn't get 1 iota closer, they just had a little fun and relaxed. However, this is also not bad. The Uchiha noted to himself. He became more relaxed. He's a little tense right now, though. Waiting for a verdict? Where should we go? A place where we could ride and talk calmly at the same time? Ferris wheel. What? Out of surprise, Uzumaki even began to stutter. We're going to the Ferris wheel. Sasuke confidently headed towards the chosen attraction. Do you like heights? Naruto followed the Uchiha without much enthusiasm. Yes. And breakneck speed. It gets the blood pumping. I love speed too, Uzumaki admitted. But the height, he sighed. They approached the attraction. Now, for some reason, there were practically no people willing to rise high above the city. Four-seater cabins smoothly floated past the platform, and without stopping for a second, smoothly slid up in a circle. "Get in!" Sasuke gently pushed the blonde forward. Somehow maintaining his balance in the suddenly shaky booth, Naruto sat down on one of the benches. Sasuke climbed in after him and was about to sit opposite him, but Uzumaki protested. "Sit next to me." He didn't even ask, he demanded. The Uchiha chuckled, but complied. The cabin slowly continued to rise, moving further and further away from the ground. I didn't want to talk at all. It was so good and calm to rise higher and higher above the city, and watch how the tired sun gradually disappeared behind the horizon, how the night city lazily woke up, filling with bright, multicolored lights. "But we never got closer," Sasuke reminded himself. "We need." Naruto couldn't stand it. The further the ground was, the greater the panic that gripped him. On other rides the height was practically not felt, at least it could not scare you so much. Everything happened quickly, at lightning speed, not like now. The Uzumaki grabbed the Uchiha's hand. For some reason, he was always a little calmed by the feeling that there was someone nearby. The cabin continued to rise and Naruto tightened his grip on Sasuke's hand. "Is there something wrong?" "Hi." Uzumaki couldn't squeeze out more. "Exactly, he told Karen that he was afraid of heights," the Uchiha recalled. "I didn't attach any importance to it then." In vain. He looked at Naruto, who was clutching his right hand with both hands. "And now what I can do?" Didn't I want to be closer to him?" Sasuke moved closer to the blonde, carefully pulled his hand out of the grip, and placed it on the guy's waist, pressing him to him. The Uzumaki was shaking slightly. He was tempted to look down, and in order not to do this, he trustingly buried his forehead in the Uchiha's shoulder and closed his eyes. The cabin, as if nothing had happened, rose higher and higher, and it seemed that it had already reached the top. Just at that moment, she suddenly shook her passengers and stopped. "Dear vacationers," a pleasant female voice spoke a few seconds later. "Please remain calm. The technical problems will be resolved soon." "Oh my God!" Naruto thought frantically. "We stopped. Now we are so far from the earth, so far." Fear and panic slowly replaced common sense. "Don't be afraid." Sasuke pressed the Uzumaki closer to him. "Look out the window." The proposal seemed suicidal to Naruto, but something still made him obey. He raised his head and looked around. It was delicious. The city resembled a small cloud of light. Cheerful flickering lights came closer, then moved away, then lit up, then went out. The red-pink streak of sunset slowly dissolved in the sky, and through the transparent white clouds the young moon shyly looked out, preparing to appear in the night sky in all its glory. "Beautiful," Uzumaki drawled admiringly, and his eyes treacherously squinted down, trying to estimate the distance to solid ground. "But I can't forget that we are so far from land." "Help?" Having received a surprised look in response, Sasuke grinned, leaned a little towards the blonde, and squealed imperiously. Contrary to all the Uchiha's expectations, Naruto didn't even think about pulling away. He did not resist Sasuke's desire to deepen his occlusion, obediently opened his mouth, and even began to actively respond. "Why? Why is he doing this? There is no one here, no need to play in front of anyone, no need to pretend. Why is he responding to me so actively? This is getting dangerous." Without breaking his grip, the Uchiha carefully laid the blonde on the bench, quickly unbuttoned his shirt, and ran his hand over his toned torso. The Uzumaki exhaled noisily and grabbed the hand caressing him, forcing him to stop. Sasuke pulled away from the delicious lips, greedily inhaled air, and again clung to Naruto, this time kissing his slender tan neck. "You have no right to touch him now!" The Uchiha stopped himself and abruptly pulled away from the blonde. "Well, are you distracted?" Sasuke tried to justify his actions. Yes, Uzumaki drawled. Naruto was truly distracted. He did not notice at all how the cabin began to move again, and that they were gradually going down, returning to the land he so dearly loved. The blonde released the Uchiha's hand, sat down, buttoned his shirt, and calmly, as if nothing had happened, looked at Sasuke. I don't understand him, thought the Uchiha. I don't understand him at all. What did I just do? Uzumaki asked himself. How could I let this happen? But there was no need to do this. The booth completed its next lap of honor. Sasuke jumped to the ground, and seeing that Naruto was hesitating, extended his hand to him. Uzumaki preferred to relegate the incident in the booth to the back of his mind and forget it at the first opportunity, but he was in no hurry to accept the offered help. After hesitating for another second, he clumsily jumped onto the platform. Are you okay? An alarm technician ran up to him. Naruto practically responded. No. The technician's answer was clearly not satisfactory. You can barely stand on your feet. Besides this pallor, you need to see a doctor immediately. The Uzumaki sighed heavily and shook his head. This trip cost him a lot of mental strength. He has long been accustomed to the fact that his fatigue manifests itself as an illness. All that remains is to somehow convey this to the whole world. It's okay. Naruto smiled. I'm just tired. Are you sure? Absolutely. Uzumaki suddenly grabbed Sasuke's hand. Let's go too. The Uchiha looked carefully at the blonde, but did not argue, nodded and plunged into thought. What to do? He thought. Stupid question, of course. You just need to, like Uzumaki, pretend that nothing happened. I've always done this. But now I don't want him to perceive this all as a game. I don't want anyone to think that this is just part of the plan, that it's all fake. Sasuke did not immediately realize that no one was squeezing his hand and that they had stopped. The Uchiha looked around lost in thought. He did not pay attention to where he was going. They left, as it turned out, not far away. Naruto sat down on the first empty bench he came across, leaned back on the wooden back, slightly tilted his head back and closed his eyes. This is just a game, Uzumaki thought. We are playing a slightly strange game, and we are just following its rules. It was quite easy to convince himself of this. But still this game is too. Here. Sasuke's voice seemed too distant. Oh my god, I practically fell asleep. Naruto looked at the Uchiha, who was holding out some kind of oblong metal can to him. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be hot coffee. Thank you. Now, when the night was rapidly coming into its own, when the cool wind was rising more and more often and more confidently, I really wanted to warm myself up with something hot. This really looks like a fairy tale, Uzumaki thought, warming his hands. It's worth thinking about, and let's get back to the car, Sasuke suggested. It's warmer there, and besides, we should hurry home, otherwise our long-awaited dinner will get cold. He smiled. A warm car, hot food. Naruto stood up. It doesn't look like he wants to come back, but he still offers. How does he know what I want? Why is he so attentive? That's right, we're playing. Let's play. They left the park and approached a lonely BMW. Stupid game. The next morning, Naruto woke up to someone staring at him. Opening his eyes slightly, he did not immediately understand what was happening. He saw the girl sitting on the edge of the bed for the first time. She was beautiful, and somewhat resembled Sasuke. The same thin aristocratic facial features, black eyes, fairly fair skin, long black hair. She was wearing a light black silk dress with an openwork bow at the waist. The girl looked at Uzumaki with a slight interested smile. Young man, she finally said, this is my room. There was no reproach or complaint in her voice, just a soft, kind smile. Naruto blinked a couple of times. He said thoughtfully. What do we do? The girl diligently tried to get the blonde to talk. So this is Sasuke's boyfriend? She thought. He's so cute when he's asleep. He doesn't understand anything at all. But that's a problem. She frowned slightly. So I won't be able to find out. Sasuke, studying at the institute, taught Naruto to wake up quickly. Not understanding anything about what was happening, he decided to involve a specialist in the matter. Sasuke looked at his watch in surprise. It was only 8 in the morning. Yesterday Uzumaki was sleeping peacefully at this time, and now, waking up so early, instead of going to his pond, he calls him. Something happened. A terrible feeling slowly took over the Uchiha. He slowly left the room and opened the door of the opposite room without knocking. Mother? Everything went cold inside. Why? Why so soon? Sasuke! The woman jumped out of bed and hung on her son's neck, joyfully kissing him on the cheek. Mother? Naruto asked in surprise, sat up on the bed and stretched. You didn't say that you have such a charming mother. Yes. The Uchiha changed his usual. Mom, meet me, this is my boyfriend. He hesitated, thinking that for the first time he was so offended that it was a lie. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto, this is my mother. Uchiha Mikoto. The woman looked away from her son, smiled and sat down on the edge of the bed again. Nice to meet you. Something doesn't look like it. Mikoto narrowed her eyes suspiciously and immediately laughed. Relax, I'm joking. I wouldn't be too happy if they woke me up either. You said that this is your room, Uzumaki recalled. Yes. This room was once mine. And I thought about living here until my husband arrived. Didn't your father come with you? Sasuke was surprised. No, Mikoto sighed. He has some important meeting, he didn't want to cancel it. So he's arriving tomorrow morning. For some reason Itachi decided to stay with him. I've never noticed his love for business negotiations, but here it is on you. But Fugaku is happy. And I'm bored there, I decided to stay with you longer. Why are you in different rooms? Mikoto switched to Uzumaki. Well, Naruto drawled, trying to quickly come up with a more or less plausible explanation. Let's check our feelings. Sasuke arched his eyebrow in surprise. Yeah? Mikoto didn't believe it. Yes. Uzumaki nodded to be sure. They always told me at home that feelings are tested by distance, so we are testing them. Oh? Mikoto thought for a moment. I think they meant something else. Yes? The blonde frowned. I thought I understood them correctly. He scratched the back of his head, puzzled. The Uchiha drawled. How long will it take us to check this? Naruto hesitated. At least a month. Before, I didn't notice such a desire for Sasuke to communicate. Perhaps this time he won't deceive us. This is the first time I've seen him look at someone so warmly. But if this is really serious, I need to make sure this guy isn't taking advantage of my son. Everyone is good at giving compliments. Everyone can put a friendly smile on their face and carry on small talk. I have to try it. Naruto, would you like to take a walk with me? Mikoto asked, smiling. Of course. The blonde began. No. Sasuke finished for him. I understand. The woman smiled. You haven't seen each other all night. She easily got out of bed and walked towards the door with weightless steps. Now I'll leave you alone. Mikoto winked slyly at her son. But in the future, don't be shy about showing your feelings. She left the room, prudently not closing the door. Naruto watched thoughtfully as the Uchiha walked up to the bed from which he had never gotten off, secretly hoping to sleep a little more, sat down in the same place where his mother had been sitting a few minutes ago, and leaned over him. I don't feel anything, Uzumaki convinced himself, maintaining the gaze of his black eyes. I don't feel anything, he repeated, while his cheeks turned treacherously red. We have absolutely no time left, Sasuke whispered against the blonde's lips. As you understand, our game has already begun. Naruto nodded barely, repeating his mantra to himself. Mikoto watched them through the slightly open door. She was curious to know what the boys were talking about. She wanted to make sure right now that her beloved youngest son was not deceiving, that everything was serious with him. But her pride simply did not allow her to burst into someone else's room after she said that she had left. All that remained was to be content with only distant observation, which, by the way, was pleasing. For the first time in recent years, Sasuke himself was someone's leader. TSL was hot and passionate, and received the same hot answer. I hope everything I see is true. Otherwise, Sasuke, you will be in trouble. Part 5. Today, boys, we are going to have fun. Mikoto happily shared her plans. They sat in the dining room and drank tea with buns. To have fun? Naruto asked carefully. Maybe we should not? What do you mean no need? The woman was sincerely surprised. While there is time, you need to have fun. You need to take everything from life. Right. Perhaps this meant agreement. Yeah. Uzumaki agreed involuntarily. Just no attractions or shopping trips. Sasuke nodded in agreement, intently studying the next bun. Oh, how boring you are! Mikoto looked out the window offended. Well, okay. She gracefully raised a porcelain cup to her lips, took a careful sip, elegantly placed it on the table, and continued. We'll go to the zoo. It's closed for repairs. Naruto popped another bun into his mouth. What a pity! The woman clasped her hands. Then let's take a walk around the city. Let's go to the main square and see what's going on there. It's decided. She nodded for convincing. So, get ready, we are leaving immediately. It won't work, Sasuke retorted. I have to work. God. Mikoto clasped her hands. Well, what is this? Some kind of epidemic. How long can you work? Why do all the men I'm interested in work all the time? She sighed heavily and looked at Uzumaki. Do you work too? No, the blonde responded after a moment of thought. I'm on vacation. This is just wonderful. The woman perked up and switched to her son. Sasuke, you can put off everything for a few hours, right? Sasuke. The Uchiha frowned, as if he was remembering and thinking about something, sighed and shook his head negatively. Mikoto glared at him. Is it really that urgent, Sasuke? Naruto got out from behind the table. Why don't we actually go for a walk like Lady Mikoto wants? He what? Does not understand? Sasuke was amazed. I try my best not to go somewhere with my mother, so that we have less problems. Why does he throw himself headlong into the pool? Why does he strive to indulge her desires? Wants to win her over? Nothing will work like that. I didn't have time to tell him about it. So what should I do? Refuse? That is, I refuse my boyfriend. I must have very good reasons for this. I don't have those, but I won't have time to come up with something plausible. I'll have to agree. This only makes it worse. Even though we have an agreement that contains clauses for all occasions, they are too far-fetched. These are extremes. How should we behave so as not to arouse suspicion? Always be together? No, this is too much. How often should we be together? How clearly should you show your feelings? Oh Naruto, are you supporting me? Mikoto chuckled mentally. Why did it happen? Do you think that by taking my side you will become my friend? Do you think that if you agree with me, I will not suspect you and my son of collusion? Do you want to lull my vigilance? Silly. The fact that you chose my wish over Sasuke's is already suspicious. I think I can cancel the meeting scheduled for 12:30. Great news! Mikoto was delighted. I'll meet you in the car in 15 minutes. Sasuke let Naruto go ahead and followed. Making sure that his mother was still sitting at the table and slowly finishing her tea, he caught up with Uzumaki, grabbed his hand and whispered in his ear. Do you even understand what problems your desire to please my mother poses to us? To please? Uzumaki asked just as quietly. How do you think this should be understood? Well, I thought. The blonde shook his head and continued to climb the stairs. Thinking about what? The Uchiha, not lagging behind, followed Naruto. Uzumaki didn't answer. He walked up the stairs with concentration and thought about something. The blonde spoke again only when he stopped in front of his door. It's wonderful to spend time with Mom, isn't it? Well, in general, yes, you are right. I haven't seen her for a whole year, and I won't see her for the same amount of time. Yes, I admit that I miss her, but this is not a reason to create problems for us. This is a reason. Naruto fell silent abruptly, noticing the brunette's slight tension. Sasuke listened. The first bottom step creaked barely audibly, then another. He specifically ordered the parquet flooring to be attached to the stone steps so that he could hear when someone was climbing the stairs. Now it was not difficult to guess who was coming up to their floor. The Uchiha nodded barely noticeably to Uzumaki, pulled him towards him, and carefully said, "I wanted." Seeing the couple, Mikoto stopped short and grinned. "Why don't you retire to one of the rooms?" she asked, clearing her throat. "And so be it, we'll postpone the walk." Sasuke really liked his mother's proposal. "No!" Naruto pushed the brunette away from him. "We'll go for a walk immediately." He went into his room, quietly slamming the door. "Which one?" Now there was no need for PC. Naruto pulled out the first things he came across from the closet. "Although, of course, it's strange that we're talking in the corridor instead of going into one of the rooms, but still this is not a reason to talk at every opportunity. I told you not to be shy." Mikoto looked reproachfully at her son. "We don't like," Sasuke thought for a moment, searching for the right word, "publicity." This was the first unconscious truth spoken all day. Autumn brought another summer-like warm day. Only rare gusts of cool wind reminded us that summer was over. The streets of the city were lively. Cars rushed along the roads in a hurry, jingling cheerfully, cyclists reminded of their existence, pedestrians scurried about on the sidewalks. "It's a boring little town." Mikoto looked thoughtfully out the tinted window of the BMW. They just stopped at the next intersection. "There's absolutely nothing to do here. How can Sasuke not understand that? What's keeping him here? Why doesn't he move to San Francisco or Rio de Janeiro? And why did Fugaku support his desire to stay here? Stupid men." She sighed heavily, watching indifferently as the schoolchildren raced across the road. "Be that as it may, now I just need to check my son's relationship with his new boyfriend. Not even like that, no. I'll leave a couple to Fugaku's mercy. I want to check out this blonde with such a charming smile. By the way, he smiles too rarely, it's even upsetting. He doesn't look like those happy idiots that Sasuke introduced us to lately. He doesn't look like him at all, which is good news, but his character. I'm afraid he's too soft and flexible, he doesn't know how to stand his ground at all. People like this irritate me. And yet I will definitely find out why he ignored Sasuke's words and supported my proposal. Why is everything like this?" Sasuke thought, reluctantly starting the car engine. "Spending time with your mother is, of course, good. No, it's wonderful. Only if she doesn't try to catch you in a lie. Doesn't try to catch him out of the blue. It feels like I'm taking an exam that I'm not ready for. I think now I know what that feeling is. What to do? What will she do? Is he going to test us? So soon? Or does he want to test Naruto? As far as I can tell, she's not thrilled with his character? But his character, even I don't know what he is like. It seems I'm in trouble." Naruto looked out the window with feigned interest, completely unaware of the street living its own life. "I've never had to pretend like that before in my life. Okay, out of some fear I agreed to portray Sasuke's boyfriend, but I'm not going to conform to his mother's preferences. Yeah. I don't really want to meet his father." The next intersection did not delay the orderly rows of cars, and generously allowed them to pass on. Having overtaken a bus that was too slow, Sasuke turned at the nearest turn, and a couple of minutes later he entered the main square of the city. Now, at the end of September, when there were no significant events, the square was empty. Only the pillars of the stage stood alone, on which numerous celebrities often performed, invited on the occasion of the next grand celebration. Behind the stage stood a sculpture of some prominent historical figure, near which the colorful tents of the monthly fair were located in a small semicircle. "It's so boring here," Mikoto said disappointedly. The guys remained tactfully silent. "Okay." The woman didn't even think of being discouraged. "Let's walk to the cinema, look at the posters, maybe they're showing something interesting." Sasuke shrugged and set the car alarm. "So that it doesn't get boring," Mikoto continued. "Let's play association. Rich people have their own quirks." Naruto scratched the back of his head, puzzled. Yes, old man, now I understand you. What kind of news is this? Sasuke was wary. What is she trying to achieve? Naruto will speak after me. Making sure, for the sake of appearances, that everyone agreed, Mikoto began the game. Sasuke. Team. Uzumaki didn't even think about it. Dope. Is the same quick answer. Oh, said Mikoto. I overslept. Alarm. Battery. Laziness. Mikoto shook her head. Yes, the speed with which the guys made associations was amazing, but it in no way revealed either their relationships or their characters. Naruto was probably the first to pour out words so calmly and naturally, without even noticing that he was being provoked into some kind of frankness. It was a complete failure. The game, which always brings considerable fruit, this time turned out to be completely useless. Well, Mikoto smiled mentally. You boys have won this round. They walked down the cobblestone street, crossed the road and stopped in front of an old gray building, harmoniously decorated with complex bas-reliefs. In front of the building there is a small round area planted with lush blue-green pine trees. There were several wooden benches at a respectful distance from the trees. On both sides of the entrance to the building there were stands, completely covered with posters. Oh, a romantic comedy. Mikoto took a quick glance at one of the stands. It starts. She looked at the elegant gold watch. In 5 minutes. Let's go. No. Naruto winced. Surely there will be mortal boredom there. HM? And this is already interesting. Mikoto smiled. So now he doesn't want to agree with me. What happened? Curious. You haven't seen her, have you? Uzumaki nodded. Where's such confidence? No way. The blonde shrugged. I just can't stand romantic comedies. What? Mikoto was sincerely surprised. You just haven't seen any good films. This one should be amazing. We'll watch it, and you'll definitely reconsider your point of view. What else? Naruto chuckled. I'm not going to go to this film. I'm not going to go to the cinema at all. Mikoto looked at Uzumaki with an indignant look, but mentally praised him. Naruto, noticing the woman's displeasure, tried to soften the situation a little. Besides, Sasuke only cancelled one meeting, so the movie wasn't part of our plans anyway. Sasuke was silent all this time and listened to the conversation, knowing full well that his opinion was of no interest to anyone. He was very happy when Uzumaki turned down the romantic comedy. It was this genre that the Uchiha hated with every fiber of his soul. But he really liked the idea of going to see some other film. You could buy tickets somewhere in the gallery, and from time to time follow the events unfolding on the screen, taking a break from another, much more interesting activity. But Naruto nixed the idea of going to the cinema in the bud, remembering in time that Sasuke had work. The Uchiha sighed. Yes, Mikoto drawled. You're right. She looked a little upset. There's nothing you can do. Let's sit here. She nodded towards one of the benches. You haven't told me anything yet. And I'm burning with curiosity. Mikoto has already forgotten that she should be upset. Tell me. She sat down on the selected bench. How you met. How? Sasuke chuckled, but was in no hurry to sit down. Well, Naruto walked over to the bench and absent-mindedly scratched the back of his head. I submitted my resume to one of the companies, and I was scheduled for an interview. And then you met for the first time. Mikoto chimed in with her guess. We looked into each other's eyes, and a spark flashed between you. You tried not to notice it, but nothing worked. Then you decided to meet. She already knew such stories by heart. Perhaps, to some, they seemed beautiful and romantic, but Mikoto was quite tired of these fairy tales. And since then you haven't been apart. She finished. It's cute, of course. Uzumaki chuckled. But no. Yeah? The woman clearly perked up. Yes. I submitted my resume. I was scheduled for an interview, but I forgot about it. How? Mikoto asked in shock. Naruto spread his hands, saying, I don't know. And then what? After? The blonde asked. The Uchiha nodded interestedly. Then I remembered this, or rather, I was reminded of this. Who? I am. Sasuke grinned. I was impressed by Naruto's resume, and I became interested in finding out what kind of person he was. Everything there is not true. Uzumaki was indignant. Oh yes. The Uchiha nodded and hugged the blonde by the waist. There's not even half the truth there. Mikoto chuckled. This story seemed too incredible to her. But now Sasuke was not acting the same as before, so it was quite possible that he himself found this guy. Beautiful couple, she noted to herself. How I wish all this were true. I'm ready to believe you, Sasuke, you know. Even if this guy has a weak character, if he prefers to indulge other people's desires, I'm ready to recognize him if he's important to you. I want to drink something. Mikoto noted with surprise. Sasuke, honey, can you buy me some water? Let me go. Naruto suggested. No. Mikoto waved her hand. I want to keep things confidential with you. She winked conspiratorially at the blonde. You don't mind, do you? Here. Sasuke frowned slightly. I have a bad feeling. You shouldn't leave them alone, but what can you do? Confidential? Uzumaki asked in surprise and smiled charmingly. With pleasure. Don't flirt with my mom. Darling, don't be jealous. Naruto looked seriously at the brunette. Seeing Sasuke's puzzled face, he grinned and pecked him on the lips. I'll have hot tea. The Uchiha sighed, reluctantly let go of the blonde, looked thoughtfully at his mother, as if about to say something, but instead he just shook his head and slowly headed to the nearest store. If Mom decided to find out something about the Uzumaki, she will certainly do it. But why did she decide to send me somewhere? What shouldn't I know? What does she want to ask? So that if something happens, I can't intervene? Finally gone. Mikoto watched her son leave. Now I can talk to Naruto face to face. Perhaps I will be able to find out his true attitude towards Sasuke. Although, now this task seems a little difficult to me, he was so good at throwing out associations. Please sit down. She asked with a friendly smile. The blonde obeyed. The woman looked at him carefully, frowned slightly and asked sternly, Do you like my son? Began. I like him. Wow. I mentally marveled at Mikoto's answer. This is the first person who doesn't say, while blushing, that he's head over heels in love with Sasuke. Interesting. Cute then? Just? No. Naruto paused, trying to understand what he felt for the Uchiha. The guy shook his head. They know each other too little for him to answer this question. I have to lie. I can't. I just can't lie. I can't. But I can't tell the truth either. It's like we've been dating for a whole year, and during this time I could have developed some feelings for him. What should I say? Okay. Mikoto unexpectedly extended a helping hand to the guy. Sorry, I asked too personal a question. Oh, this is curiosity. She smiled guiltily. Tell me. She flashed her black eyes slyly. Do you like girls? And this is also just idle curiosity. The blonde arched his eyebrow in confusion. I like it. Yeah. Mikoto continued to smile. And the guys? Yes. I like guys too. Naruto gave his interlocutor an innocent look. I generally love people. How sweet, the Uchiha muttered. The Uzumaki pretended not to hear her. Who were you dating before Sasuke? Eh? How inquisitive you are. It's just infuriating. Everything that happened before Sasuke doesn't matter. What answer? Standard. However, it is in this context that I believe it is the most correct. Mikoto shook her head. For some reason I can't get anything out of him. Sasuke, where are you? Naruto howled mentally. Your mom asked too many difficult questions. Are your parents okay with you dating a guy? The Uchiha made another attempt to get the Uzumaki to talk. Isn't this my personal business? Of course, but don't you care what your parents think? Opinion? Naruto asked thoughtfully. I'm worried. It was not clear whether he was asking or asserting. Probably. I think my parents would like me to be happy. Would you like? asked Mikoto. It seems that I finally managed to get him to talk. But I found out something completely different from what I needed. Eh? The blonde shook his head. It seems I said too much. Where is this Uchiha? Is he kidding me? How long can you go to some store? I wouldn't be surprised if he went to an exclusive supermarket. The guy looked around. Finally, Sasuke tried to return as quickly as possible. But the old store 100 meters from the cinema was no longer there, and a couple of kiosks on the other side of the street, as if by agreement, closed for re-registration. The next store did not have the required product. Mentally swearing at the only working store, the Uchiha decided to return without shopping. But at the intersection he accidentally noticed a small grocery store, where 3 saleswomen served him with enviable enthusiasm. And what were they all doing behind one rather small counter? Sasuke had already seen the people he needed. The closer he came, the more anxiety arose in his soul. The Uzumaki was slightly tense, which in principle was not surprising. Only a father could remain calm while talking to Mikoto. The Uchiha was more concerned about the puzzlement of his mother, who, apparently, had learned something after all. But judging by her alarmed face, this something did not concern them: deception. Sasuke said to himself. I can't even imagine what I need to do so that this isn't a hoax. You didn't say you'd be gone for so long. Uzumaki was indignant, but was in no hurry to rush into hugs. Indeed, Sasuke. Mikoto spoke reproachfully, but deep down she was glad that her son returned on time. Why so long? The Uchiha grinned at the corners of his lips. I wonder what Uzumaki told her, since she's so glad that I'm back. Having handed out the purchases and admiring how the blonde boy with childish curiosity examined a metal can with a bright green pattern, Sasuke thoughtfully looked at his watch and decided that it was time to end the shocks for today with walks and, judging by the faces of those sitting on the bench, it's time to go back. Already? The Uchiha seemed surprised and a little upset. Maybe Naruto and I can go for a walk again. I'm afraid it won't work. Uzumaki immediately refused. I can't let you go. Sasuke shook his head. You won't get home without a car. You don't recognize taxis but public transport. Mom, you can't stand it. You, of course, could pick us up. Mikoto drawled. But let's all go home together. I haven't seen you for so long. She fell silent and smiled. I'll see how you work. The Uchiha continued. I always liked watching you. Returning home, Sasuke hurried to pretend to be active in business. After making a couple of calls and typing up a few documents, he sat back and thought. It was damn interesting that Mom found out about Naruto. What unsettled her? Usually no one managed to hurt her. Mikoto leisurely strolled through the garden. Inhaling the native aroma of her favorite flowers, she thought that this time everything was somehow very complicated. Previously, one glance was enough for her to understand whether her youngest son was playing a prank on her. Now everything turned out to be quite confusing. At least she knew for sure that Sasuke was serious this time, and it was possible that he actually felt something for Naruto. The blonde still hasn't decided on his feelings, and openly says what is, in principle, already obvious. The Uzumaki's honesty confused Mikoto. She was accustomed to subtle intrigues, trick phrases, and sophisticated lies. Yeah, the woman stopped in the middle of the path. Something tells me that this time, yes, this time Sasuke is the hardest of all. For the first time they look at him without due adoration. But this is even more interesting. I'm sure Sasuke will easily achieve this blonde, if, of course, the question is the way I see it. She turned around and walked back. Why yes, boys, you needed a little more time. She sighed, walked up to the house and grinned. Maybe I should have warned Sasuke that Fugaka might arrive tonight. Naruto sat in the spacious living room and mindlessly switched channels on the TV. Apparently he enjoyed the process of pressing buttons, since sometimes he even forgot to look at the television screen. I thought you were with Sasuke. Naruto turned his thoughtful gaze to Mikoto. I don't want to distract him. Well formulated. The woman mentally praised. Everyone else said they didn't want to interfere. Did you find something interesting? Eh? Yes, the speed of this remote control can be increased. Sorry, what? The blonde blinked a couple of times. Never mind. He smiled. Okay. Mikoto looked at Uzumaki with a suspicious look, looked around, noticed the butler and motioned for him to come over. I've been sitting here for a while. Sasuke stood up and stretched. You shouldn't have left Naruto alone. He could accidentally run into his mother, and she could bombard him with a bunch of questions. If only he had agreed to sit with me. But for some reason he was categorically against it. The Uchiha wanted to leave the office, but he was attracted by an incomprehensible noise on the street. Looking out the window, he froze. On the street, quickly cutting through the air and raising a strong wind that disturbed the dormant trees, my father's personal plane gradually descended. Tomorrow morning, that means? Sasuke chuckled and grinned mirthlessly. An hour earlier, an hour later, it doesn't matter. He thoughtfully watched as the plane smoothly landed on a special platform. The ramp opened and first his older brother, then his boyfriend, and finally, his father descended. With an imperious gesture, he orders the pilot to take care of the plane, and he looks around his home and grins. Looks like it's time. Sasuke sighed after looking at the guests and left the office. The most important thing now was to find Naruto before he met his father. Part 6. Expensive. Mikoto clasped her hands and threw herself into her husband's arms. I thought you would arrive tomorrow. Can I leave you alone for a long time? Daddy's here. Naruto put the remote control down and bit his lip. Judging by his voice, he is a very strong man, tough. Even in a conversation with his wife, no matter how hard he tries, he cannot get rid of the imperious tone. I don't know how to talk to people like that at all. How can I get out of here? And why did I leave my phone in the room? And Sasuke can't see anything. Do I really have to meet Daddy right now? No! I am not ready! Think, Uzumaki, you can't leave here through the main doors. Bingo! Itachi. Son! You've grown. Mikoto had already turned her attention to her son who had entered the living room. Naruto silently slid off the sofa and carefully, praying to all the saints that he would not be noticed, crept towards the inconspicuous door of the servants' room. The door, fortunately, was not locked, and Uzumaki, sighing in relief, left the living room without being noticed by anyone. Once safe, the blonde leaned against the closed door and listened. Mom! The velvet voice responded with a slight reproach. We saw each other a couple of days ago. Where is Deidara? The woman seemed not to notice her son's remark. Flirting with, and you're not jealous? Mikoto immediately interrupted. I'm already used to it. Where is Sasuke? An imperious question interrupted the happy chirping of the Uchiha for exactly 1 second. It works. Mikoto sighed heavily and immediately smiled happily. I'll now introduce you to his. The woman lowered her voice to a barely audible whisper. The next guy. And finished loudly. Realizing that hiding behind the door was useless, Uzumaki walked to the opposite door as quietly as possible, secretly rejoicing that the room was light and empty. The second door was also unlocked. It led to that part of the garden that Sasuke, for some reason, did not show to Uzumaki. Naruto breathed in the fresh, cool air with relief and looked around. It's so cold here. The blonde began to dance on the spot. How can I get back into the house without going through the living room? To his right, someone was cheerfully telling something. Judging by the restrained and polite answers, the narrator was the same as yet unknown Deidara. This means you can't go right. If I go left, I will most likely come out to the main entrance. What should I do? How cold it is. Okay. Naruto clenched his fists. I still have to get to know all of them. He decisively turned left. Come what may. Strange. Mikoto looked at the empty sofa in surprise. He was here a couple of minutes ago. She looked blankly, first at her son, then at her husband, then her gaze slid to the door. Here he is. The woman smiled happily. Hello. Uzumaki squeezed out with difficulty and walked deeper into the living room. Hello. A guy with long black hair tied with a dark cord smiled tiredly. He looked a little older than Sasuke, and was very similar to him in his facial features, especially his eyes, black as night, with a sly grin hidden at the bottom. I'm glad to finally meet you. The guy smiled encouragingly and extended his hand. Itachi Uchiha. Uzumaki Naruto. The blonde limited himself to a slight half-smile, but did not refuse the handshake. Naruto turned his gaze to Sasuke's father. He was a handsome man of average height. Unlike his sons, he cut his black, coarse hair short. His thin lips were pressed tightly together and slightly curved downward, as if the man did not like what he saw. Neat eyebrows, as if surprised by something, were raised upward. Coldness and hostility were visible in his dark brown eyes. The longer Uzumaki played a staring contest with the man, the more his gaze changed. The once vibrant eyes, the color of the sky, slowly turned into the icy surface of the ocean. The room became noticeably colder. But no one thought to interrupt the unpleasant silence that hung. Not bad, the man noted to himself. It's been a long time since I've met young men who could hold my gaze. Uchiha Fugaku. Deciding that the guy had passed the test, the man introduced himself restrainedly. The blonde nodded slightly. Great! Mikoto joined her palms contentedly. Let's celebrate your arrival. It's not worth it. Fugaku besieged her. To begin with, I would like to immediately dot the I's. So Naruto, tell me how much Sasuke gets. The blonde's eyes widened, he stared at the man in bewilderment and honestly admitted. I have no idea. Curious. Previously, they always told me the exact amount. What does he do? You do not know? Uzumaki asked carefully. Who knows? Fugaku grinned. I want to know what you know. Should I know this? Do you really care where your boyfriend gets his money from? Itachi raised an eyebrow in surprise. Well, he doesn't seem to be involved in crime, Naruto said thoughtfully. But overall, you're right, I don't care. But, the blonde continued, catching Mikoto's searching gaze, if it's so important, for sure I'll ask him. Fugaku frowned. So you take other people's money, and you don't care at all how it was obtained? But that's right. Mikoto unexpectedly stood up for Uzumaki. I don't take other people's money. Naruto shook his head. I am able to provide for myself. That's how it is. Fugaku's face brightened a little. So you are working. By whom? The bartender. The blonde responded without hesitation. Bartender? The man snorted. Therefore, you have no education. Naruto didn't have time to answer. A happy blonde man with long, shoulder-length hair, part of which was gathered in a ponytail on the top of his head, flew into the living room from the street. Long bangs hid her right eye, and a satisfied smile played on her lips. The guy happily hung on Itachi's neck and began to enthusiastically whisper something in his ear. At the same time, Sasuke appeared on the stairs. Quickly assessing the situation in the living room, he cursed quietly. If it weren't for that stupid phone call, he might have managed to delay this unpleasant moment of the meeting, but it was too late to change anything. The Uchiha sighed and walked into the living room. Long time no see, father, he greeted restrainedly, hugging Uzumaki around the waist. Fugaku nodded. Sasuke. Naruto looked back and smiled tightly. You're just in time. Could you tell me how much you earn, and where and who you work for? He actually asked. Itachi had difficulty hiding his surprise. Fugaku had much better self-control. I don't know the answers to these questions. Uzumaki looked down guiltily. Help me out, huh? Sasuke said thoughtfully. That's not the answer. The blonde grinned, let go of Itachi and stared at Naruto with curiosity. I saw you somewhere. And I do not. Tsukuri Deidara. Uzumaki Naruto. Deidara drawled. Uzumaki. Exactly. You are a Polytechnic legend. My little brother is delighted with you. Polytechnic? Asked Fugaku. Yes. Sakuri nodded confidently. Naruto covered his face with his hand. You managed to attend all the parties. They took place in my room, Uzumaki muttered. I woke up all of Professor Sarutobi's steam. Not on purpose. And he was the only one who closed his item without any problems. Who is Professor Sarutobi? Itachi intervened. I don't know. Deidara shrugged. But judging by the stories, Sasori is a terrible uncle. Yes, Naruto? Uzumaki nodded in agreement. So you graduated from Polytechnic? Fugaku looked at Naruto appraisingly. And you're not working in your specialty. Why? Because, Naruto wanted to answer, but at the last moment he changed his mind. It's none of your business. But you worked in your specialty. It was, Deidara began. One more word. Uzumaki looked at Sakuri with a murderous look. And I'll kill you and your little stalker. Deidara raised his hands up in conciliation. Silence fell in the living room again. Itachi played staring contest with Sasuke, trying hard to suppress his smile. Fugaku was wondering where he should look for information about the Uzumakis, and was inclined to conclude that the easiest way was to find out everything from Sakuri or, which would be much more convenient, to contact Sarutobi. Deidara glanced guiltily at Naruto, while Uzumaki pretended not to notice anything. Mikoto looked contentedly from her sons to her husband finally. Her entire beloved family had gathered together again. Discussing the next passion of sons was also a kind of tradition. Now that the eldest son has already found his soul mate, and has ceased to be one of the main characters in the press, he was also included in the discussions. At times, the young man's suggestions were very useful. Almost the whole family gathered in Fugaku's old office. The head of the family took a comfortable chair in front of a massive oak table and mechanically pulled out the top drawer of the table. There was practically nothing there anymore. Closing the box, the man looked sternly at his son, who still had not deigned to take the chair assigned to him. Itachi seemed oblivious to his father's displeasure. He looked at the dark brown bookcase in fascination, trying to remember the names of the books that were so attractive because they were hidden under a tiny lock. Realizing that there was no point in testing his father's patience, Itachi barely smiled at his thoughts and took one of the chairs opposite the table. Fugaku nodded in satisfaction and looked at Mikoto. Seeing his wife's satisfied smile, his gaze warmed. The man allowed himself to smile back and look out the window, trying to understand what interested Mikoto so much that she was in no hurry to start a conversation. Noticing her husband's impatience, the woman shook her head, turned around, gave the men a warm smile and gracefully sat down in an antique oak chair. How do you like Uzumaki? She asked. According to Day, he's a nice fellow. Itachi chuckled. Smart. Fugaku put his hands on the table. Since our first meeting, he has never caught my eye. It's just a coincidence. Mikoto gave her husband a condescending smile. All of yesterday evening and practically most of today? Itachi shook his head doubtfully. Doesn't seem like a coincidence. I contacted Sarutobi. Fugaku continued, nodding to his son. He's my old friend. The man answered his wife's silent question. It's rare that he praises someone like that. In short, everything Sakuri said about this guy is true. Plus, he is also an athlete. It's hard not to notice. Itachi shrugged. So, Uzumaki is a slob who never missed a single party, a lucky guy who managed to easily pass the most terrible exams, an athlete who probably brought some laurels to his university. It seems to me that a person like him is not exactly what my overly serious brother needs. But, Mikoto looked reproachfully at her son. Everything you listed is only one side of the coin. There is also another one. Mom is supporting Sasuke as always. Itachi frowned, thinking about his mother's words. However, perhaps I'm wrong. I don't quite understand what she's talking about. Different, Fugaku repeated. Yes, he nodded. Today at our traditional family dinner I will ask him about this other side. Itachi raised an eyebrow in surprise. Who would have thought that Uzumaki Naruto is the same guy who interested me so much at one time? Finally I will get answers to all my questions. Sasuke sat on the edge of the bed, and thoughtfully examined the calm face of the sleeping Naruto. He couldn't help but think that right now his father and mother were discussing their future plan of action. Itachi humbly listens to their conversation, offering his brilliant ideas from time to time. The ideas of the older brother often pleased the mother, and cost Sasuke a lot of nerves. He would have gladly overheard their conversation, but pride and education did not allow this. In addition, Deidara, portraying a responsible sentry, guards the doors of his father's office. The Uchiha wanted to wake up the blonde, which is exactly why he came to his room an hour ago. Not long ago, a restaurant called and said that the table was ready, and that dear clients could come to the feast at any time. They needed to get ready for dinner and discuss some details of their behavior. Sasuke extended his hand towards Naruto, but instead of placing it on the boy's shoulder, he pulled it away, driven by his thoughts. I know absolutely nothing about him. Before my father arrived, I didn't even know that he worked as a bartender. However, before this it was not difficult to guess. But I wouldn't have known that Naruto graduated from Polytechnic without Deidara's help. Why? Because I wouldn't even think to ask. The phone vibrated in my pocket. Without waiting for the standard melody to start screaming throughout the room, Sasuke accepted the call, involuntarily surprised that his brother was using a mobile connection instead of calling him. A short "It's time" forced the Uchiha to shake Uzumaki's shoulder, but waking up the blonde was not such an easy task. Naruto muttered something displeased, jerked his shoulder, trying to get rid of the extra weight, and turning over on his back, did not deign to wake up. Sasuke sighed heavily, shook his head and chuckled. Perhaps that is why he did not notice that the door to the room opened slightly and Makoto looked through the resulting gap. She was going to exchange a few words with Uzumaki, but noticing her youngest son in the room, she decided to just watch the couple. Naruto! Sasuke called quietly. The blonde snorted quietly in response. It feels like he's mocking me. The Uchiha moved closer to the guy. He was next to me all day, and I didn't even have the opportunity to touch him. And why? Because it was just the two of us. Together. And there was absolutely no need to play to the public. Damn it! When did I make my life so difficult? Sasuke leaned over Uzumaki and touched the corner of his lips. Contrary to all the Uchiha's expectations, the next moment sleepy dark blue eyes stared at him. Naruto blinked a couple of times, trying to figure out what was going on. It was almost impossible to do this while asleep. The only thing the blonde caught was that just a second ago there was an Uchiha next to him, and now he was somehow far away. Naruto blinked again and grabbed the brunette by the shirt, not without his help, pulled him towards him and demanded. Either it was his inner impulse, or he simply noticed Makoto. The hot, passionate PC was driving me crazy. Sasuke was in no hurry to seize the initiative and allowed Uzumaki to direct the kiss. He still did not fully believe that he was the object of his dreams. Naruto let go of the Uchiha, pushed him away from him a little and took a sharp breath. In the sudden silence, the light slam of the door and the click of retreating heels could be clearly heard. The guys, as if on cue, looked at the door. Naruto raised an eyebrow in confusion and looked at Sasuke as if asking, "What was that?" The Uchiha shrugged. "I definitely closed the door tightly," the Uchiha recalled. "Why would she be watching us now? Mom used to always give me the opportunity to prepare for dinner. What brought her here now? In any case, what she saw is to our advantage. But I would like to know how to understand all this." Stand. Sasuke noticed that Uzumaki, without really understanding anything, decided to continue contemplating the interrupted dream. "What?" muttered dissatisfiedly from the depths of the pillow. "Sorry, but you won't be able to sleep. Now we are going to a restaurant for a family dinner." "Where we go?" Uzumaki tore the pillow from his face and looked warily at the brunette. There was still a slight blush on his cheeks. Apparently the guy realized what he was doing a couple of minutes ago. Sasuke chuckled and repeated patiently. "In a restaurant. We have a traditional family dinner." "With your father?" "Yes." "No." Sasuke laughed quietly and sat down next to Naruto, ruffling his tousled blonde hair. "It's not at all as scary as it seems," he said softly. "Father is not at all as stern and callous as he wants to seem." Seeing the blonde's embarrassment, the Uchiha smiled. "All you need is to smile at the right moment. You have a simply amazing smile." Sasuke whispered the last words into Uzumaki's ear, enjoying how the guy flinched briefly at every word he uttered and how the tips of his ears turned red. The city was as lively as always. Cars whizzed along the central streets, and passers-by hurried about their business. No one noticed how dusk was slowly falling on the city, how the lanterns were lit, and the signs began to attract attention with their unnaturally bright flashing lights. Sasuke drove through the intersection and, without thinking, turned on his headlights. Driving the car has become more comfortable. Naruto sat next to him, secretly glad that they were traveling separately to the notorious restaurant. The Uzumaki was amazed how they managed to slip past Itachi and Fugaku so that they only noticed them in the car, and even then only when it started moving. And yet, despite the fact that they left earlier, they arrived later for some reason. Fugaku greeted his youngest son with a triumphant smile, and gave Naruto a reserved nod. Mikoto did not miss the opportunity to hug her sons, after which she happily took her husband by the elbow, showing complete readiness to finally enter the restaurant. Itachi carefully examined Uzumaki, noting to himself that this time his younger brother had snatched up a very handsome young man. Dark blue jeans focused attention on slender legs. A light, weather-appropriate shirt, not fastened with the top buttons, was in perfect harmony with golden hair and brown skin. Itachi would have continued to look at Naruto, not noticing his surprised and mocking look, if Deidara had not poked him in the side. Tsukuri was dressed in a light, classic suit. The buttons of the jacket were carelessly undone, and the gold pin on the scarlet tie was slightly askew. Realizing that he had made a slight mistake, Itachi lightly, as if apologizing, pressed his blond man into tightly compressed lips, critically examined the disgruntled guy, and straightened the pin that had slipped off. Uchihas were faithful to strict black business suits. It was practical and convenient. You don't have to spend 3 hours choosing a tie while listening to Mikoto's sarcastic comments. The woman herself simply sparkled. The blue-black dress fit perfectly on her petite figure, and the black silk scarf flirtatiously exposed her shoulders. Expensive jewelry glittered dimly in the light of the street lamps. "Boys," she turned around and gave the stragglers a dazzling smile. "Don't yawn." The doorman opened the door and Naruto, without really having time to look at the building, entered the restaurant. There was a dim light in the room and some unobtrusive music was playing. Fugaku walked majestically past a long table laden with all kinds of dishes, at the head of which stood a photograph of some young, pretty, red-haired woman with surprisingly lively brown eyes, and nodded briefly to the man who glanced at him, expressing his condolences. Mikoto, depicting worldwide sadness on her face, nodded to the girl who was wiping tears from the corners of her eyes with a silk handkerchief, and thought that the timing for the traditional dinner was poorly chosen. Itachi glanced briefly at the long table and immediately became interested in the huge sparkling chandeliers and painted ceilings. Deidara, immersed in his thoughts, did not notice the gloomy table at all. Naruto, looking at the rich interior of the restaurant, had the imprudence to look to the side. He stopped abruptly when he recognized the woman from the photograph. "What the hell is going on here?" he muttered barely audibly, looking in amazement at the so-called wake. "Why is there a photograph of my mother at the head of the table?" "Naruto!" Sasuke put his hand on the blonde's shoulder. "Let's go too." The Uzumaki perked up, nodded, and hurried past the funeral table. The Uchiha carefully examined the table, trying to understand what attracted the attention of his blonde, and why such events were not hidden from prying eyes. Having still not found answers to his questions, he hurried to catch up with the Uzumaki. The ordered table stood near the wall, so that no one could see it, and so that those who would sit at it could see everyone. Fugaku nodded approvingly to the waiter finishing the table setting and gallantly pushed back an easy chair, inviting his wife to sit down. Nodding to his sons, he took a place at the head of the table and looked around at those gathered with a condescending look. "I'm glad," he began. That we still honor our little tradition of getting together on the last day of September. The faces of the sons lit up with smiles, reliably hiding the boys' real thoughts about this wonderful tradition. Let's start with the meal, Fugaku continued. It feels like I'm in the Middle Ages. Naruto shivered slightly and smiled a little tensely at Sasuke, who decided to serve him. They ate in complete silence. Some enjoyed rare delicacies, others put food into their mouths mechanically, not noticing its exquisite taste. Is something bothering you, young man? Uzumaki's internal tension was not hidden from Fugaku. No. Naruto managed to force his voice to sound indifferent at the last moment. I'm not used to such places. This luxury annoys me. Is it true? Mikoto threw an interested glance at the blonde. This is the first time I've heard that luxury annoys someone. Everyone has always admired this place. Oh, that's understandable. Fugaku nodded restrainedly. All the slackers like this tinsel. Sounds like an insult. Mikoto bit her lower lip, offended. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. A warm smile touched the man's face. You understood me perfectly. He turned his serious gaze to Uzumaki. I would like to clarify a few issues. Who would doubt it? Naruto muttered under his breath. Tsukuri smiled sympathetically at him. As far as I know, 2 years ago you worked in your specialty at a very promising company, Velocity of Light, and was one of the leading experts in the field of microprocessor development. Wow! Uzumaki chuckled sadly. Your knowledge impresses me. I'm not finished. Fugaku chuckled. So, being a leading specialist, and apparently doing what you love, you suddenly gave up everything and became a bartender. What a disappointment. Naruto sighed heavily. Itachi gave Sasuke a wary look. Your sources are so irresponsible. If they did their job better, they would probably tell you that I have been working as a bartender since I was 20 and have never stopped doing it. Ignoring Fugaku's icy gaze, Uzumaki continued. Are you interested in the reasons for my leaving? Elementary. I had huge disagreements with my superiors. We know about this. Itachi nodded. The golden eyebrow arched skeptically, as if asking, come on. They wrote about it in the newspapers. Oh, Uzumaki casually waved his hand. That's what you're talking about. This is all nonsense. You think so? Fugaku looked intently at Naruto. Your idea was stolen. The patent was fraudulently signed in the name of another person. Do you think this is nonsense? Yes. I'll come up with something else if necessary. In addition, my ownership rights were returned to me. Oh, Fugaku grinned. This is the most interesting question. You filed a lawsuit and never showed up. I have urgent matters. More important than your career? The Uzumaki was silent for a minute, as if pondering the answer, then gave Fugaku a cold, unshakably confident look. Yes, Part 7. Mikoto frowned. The atmosphere at the table became tense, and the culprit was Uzumaki, and sad as it was, her adored husband. Previously, the woman managed to smooth out the two sharp edges of the conversation, reminding Fugaku in time that he was not talking with guilty subordinates, but with a person important to their son. However, before no one came into conflict with her husband, no one tried to firmly defend their point of view. No one dared to look him in the eyes. We need to do something urgently. Mikoto tightened her grip on the fork in her hand. That's how it is. Fugaku grinned, and the woman mentally relaxed. Do you regret that you lost your place? Lost? Naruto was sincerely surprised. Yes, I barely escaped from there. Itachi laughed. Deidara looked at him uncertainly, turned his wary gaze to the head of the Uchiha family, and allowed himself to smile. Sasuke looked carefully at Uzumaki, trying to read the guy's real thoughts in his indignant eyes, but the many emotions reflected on his face and quickly replacing one another presented the Uchiha with an impossible task. What do you want, ma'am? In order to further defuse the situation at the table, and to prevent her dear husband from resuming, as it turned out, too slippery a topic, Mikoto called the waiter, who, watching the fun of one of the visitors, still did not dare to announce his presence. Only a friendly nod from the woman convinced the waiter to remind him of himself. "Dessert, please." Mikoto gave the young man one of her most charming smiles and turned to her husband. "I really want something sweet," she admitted a little guiltily. "Of course, dear." Fugaku surprisingly quickly turned his attention to his wife. "Don't deny yourself anything." Naruto chuckled mentally, looked at his half-empty plate, and was surprised that he did not remember the taste of the steak he had just eaten. For some reason it became very offensive. "Would you like something else?" The waiter readily took out a notepad. "No." Deidara shook his head, glanced sideways at his plate, and thought that it would be a pity not to finish such a delicious dish. "But, look, there's so much of it. I won't refuse dessert either." Itachi carefully wiped the corners of his lips with a napkin. Sasuke, as always, was taciturn. The waiter looked questioningly at the younger Uchiha, but he didn't seem to notice. "He needs coffee," Naruto translated, still looking at his plate. "Strong, black, without sugar. He studied my little brother quite well." Itachi chuckled to himself. "He remembered it the first time." Sasuke was amazed. "And me?" Uzumaki raised his eyes and hesitated. The blonde's gaze involuntarily slid past the waiter, who was looking at him gratefully, and was drawn to the photograph of a happily smiling mother, clearly visible from his place. "For me," he repeated, forcing himself to look at the waiter and smile. "Another steak?" "Sure?" Deidara asked incredulously. "Yes," Naruto responded, still looking at the photograph standing at the head of the funeral table. "I haven't really tried it yet." "Whiskey," Fugaku ordered briefly. The waiter nodded and hurried to fill the order. There was silence at the table, but this did not mean that the conversation stopped. Mikoto exchanged meaningful glances with Itachi and Deidara. Sasuke diligently pretended not to notice this and tried to enjoy dinner. Naruto kept looking at the far-long table, thinking that it no longer hurt him to see photographs of his mother, as well as to remember her. Fugaku, who was carefully watching Uzumaki, followed his gaze and chuckled mentally. Could it be that this blonde man, supposedly his youngest son's boyfriend, really likes this girl so much? Yes, she is pretty young, and yes, it's a pity for her, but it's crazy to look at a stranger and show absolutely no interest in your boyfriend. Another prank. By Sasuke. The man mentally sighed, nodded approvingly to the waiter, who filled the order so quickly, and smiling at his wife, continued to watch the Uzumaki. "Can I pick it up?" the waiter timidly asked Naruto. The blonde didn't even raise an eyebrow, as if it wasn't him who was asked the question. "Yes," he responded a minute later, without bothering to find out what the waiter was talking about. "How fleeting life is," Fugaku said after waiting for the waiter to leave. Naruto shuddered and looked at the man completely calmly, but refrained from commenting. "What are you getting at, father?" Itachi decided to continue the conversation, knowing full well that this conversation was unlikely to bode well. "No use." The Uchiha shook his head, at the last moment deciding that someone else's grief was not the best reason for moralizing. "Since we have witnessed this tragic event," he nodded towards the funeral table, "why don't we drink to the repose of this girl's soul? I couldn't even imagine that this Uchiha was so devout." Uzumaki chuckled mentally. Mikoto frowned. Previously, her husband had always been indifferent to other people's grief. At least he never offered to drink for the repose of someone's soul. Not understanding what her husband wanted to achieve, the woman, nevertheless, decided to support his idea. She nodded curtly and picked up her glass. "No," Naruto shook his head. "I don't drink." And having caught some too incredulous glances, he corrected himself. "I don't drink anymore." I understand." Fugaku gave Uzumaki a cold, searching look, but the blonde did not seem to notice this, and the man continued as if nothing had happened. "It doesn't look like the girl is from a rich family." It was not lost on him that Uzumaki shuddered. "I think it's worth making a donation, so to speak, as a sign of condolences." "I don't think this is a good investment." Naruto shrugged nonchalantly, as if he was making small talk about the weather. "He's interesting. Fugaku thoughtfully watched as Uzumaki, without much appetite, began to eat the food he brought. How much is this guy worth? How much is he willing to sell Sasuke for? Speaking of Sasuke, he, of course, does not like to chat, but he used to at least occasionally carry on a conversation. Yes, our conversation is not going well, and everything is actually not working out the way we would like, but this is not a reason to remain silent. I end up insulting his boyfriend. Am I insulting you? Naruto had no trouble pretending not to notice the eyes on him. For 2 years of work in his specialty, he, oddly enough, got used to the increased attention to his modest person. True, before these views were far from being so hostile, but Uzumaki was even satisfied with this. Hostility and enmity attracted him much more than the lustful glances of his boss and his pathetic attempts to make his vulgar dreams come true. Naruto winced slightly at the inappropriate memory. Any, even indirect, reminder of his former boss could take away his appetite for a whole week. When will I ever sit in such a luxurious restaurant, with such lousy company and unpleasant neighbors? When else will I be able to eat as many delicacies as my heart desires at government expense? So Naruto, enjoy your food. And don't think about anything while you have the opportunity. The Uzumaki was so busy eating that he didn't notice Sasuke's phone ringing. The Uchiha frowned, grunted displeasedly, looked a little guiltily at his father, and left the table. Fugaku nodded seriously to his son, and noticing his wife's pleased smile, looked seriously at Naruto, intending to resume the interrupted conversation. Deidara sighed heavily. Do you want more? Naruto winced and looked up. Mikoto smiled good-naturedly and reached for the button to call the waiter. Thanks, no. You need to know when to stop. Fugaku grinned, as if showing that he was joking, and having waited for the response smile of all the diners, he suddenly became more serious. Let's stop this farce. He looked intently at Uzumaki. What are you speaking about? The blonde raised an eyebrow in confusion. It's simple. Name your amount. Eh? How much do you want to get for breaking up with Sasuke? I'll break up with him anyway in a month less. Naruto looked at the Uchiha in bewilderment. Why should I pay for this? But now we're playing. And for me, in theory, this proposal should be wild. What do you mean? Break up with Sasuke? Uzumaki frowned. You'll go your separate ways. Fugaku explained patiently. Why? Because I will pay you. What? Naruto was sincerely indignant. How dare you offer me this? So that I could sell my feelings for a couple of packs of green ones? Let this not happen. Feelings? Itachi asked mockingly. And what do you feel? Why are you pissing me off? Straightforward and honest. Fugaku chuckled approvingly. Mikoto tried in vain to keep a serious expression on her face. Uzumaki's answer reminded her of how easily and simply he played association, and once again made her marvel at how easily this guy could switch from topic to topic. Oh. Itachi grinned, showing with all his appearance that the answer did not hurt him at all, on the contrary, it pleased him. What kind of feelings do you have for my brother? Deidara stepped hard on his boyfriend's foot. Making every effort, the Uchiha accompanied his question with a malicious smile. Naruto frowned, having no idea how to answer such a direct question, and not seeing any point in trying to prove anything to Itachi. Sasuke doesn't doubt his feelings. Stop. Naruto besieged himself. Don't overdo it. But should I be indignant? No, that's stupid. Maybe smile mysteriously? Like in that cheap movie about love that Gaara decided to watch after getting drunk? No, this is nonsense. Uzumaki was saved from having to answer by Deidara, who accidentally touched his glass. The ice clinked softly against the glass wall of the vessel, and an orange-golden liquid spilled across the table. Oh! Tsukuri clasped his hands guiltily and knocked back another glass. Naruto clearly intended to say something else, but at the last moment something stopped him. You sorry! Deidara blurted out, grabbed a napkin and at the same time turned over someone's plate. Darling! Itachi said affectionately. Calm down. Everything is fine. Tsukuri looked at him incredulously, and somehow guiltily. Put down the napkin. Carefully. Yes, that's it, well done. Naruto exhaled sharply, without any words expressing his opinion on what was happening, and shook his right hand. A drink spilled on the table tried to drip onto his jeans, and that was not so bad. What was much worse was that something was stuck to his hand, no longer recognizable, and did not want to come off. Uzumaki decided not to attach importance to the fact that for some reason all the things Deidara knocked over flew only at him. He took a nearby napkin and wiped his hand. The unpleasant sticky feeling was annoying, and the blonde decided to act radically. He got up. Ah, Tsukuri began, and hesitated. Naruto gave him a warning look, inhaled and threatened with his index finger, making it clear that it was better for everyone to keep quiet for now. Sasuke listened with half an ear to what his companion was telling him, carefully watching what was happening at the table. He understood perfectly well that his absence would only benefit his parents, but he could not do anything about it. Watching in bewilderment as Deidara turned over the dishes, he was amazed at the Uzumaki's composure. However, the fact that the blonde stood up alarmed Sasuke, and he, in a hurry to figure everything out, tried to end the conversation as quickly as possible, but still did not have time. When he returned to the table, Naruto had already left. What's happened? The Uchiha thoughtfully examined Tsukuri's masterpiece. This? Nothing. Itachi grinned and with a theatrical gesture invited his brother to sit down. Darling! He gave Deidara one of his most charming smiles. Why don't you follow Naruto's example and wash your hands? Tsukuri nodded carefully, trying not to touch the table, stood up and followed Uzumaki. Fugaku paid no attention to what was happening at the table. He was more interested in the new guy Sasuke. So he approached the memorial table, stopped for a moment, and decisively walked towards the young woman sitting opposite the photograph. Smiling as if he saw an old acquaintance, he said something quietly, looked at the photograph, said something else, and moved on. The woman smiled nervously, said something guiltily to her companions and turned to the waiter standing next to her. Fugaku snapped his fingers, attracting the attention of a young man passing by. I'm listening, you. He immediately went to the VIP table and readily took out a notepad. Did you hear what that guy said? Why, yes. The waiter became a little embarrassed under the Uchiha's searching gaze. It was hard not to hear. Fugaku arched his eyebrow questioningly, not wanting to voice the question, but clearly hinting at it. The young man hesitated for several seconds, but, unable to withstand the gaze, gave up. She's smart in the spring. The waiter shuddered because everyone at the table frowned, but still continued. 5 years ago. Fugaku calmly watched as new dishes were placed on the funeral table. Then he turned his indifferent gaze to the waiter, and, as if nothing had happened, ordered them to clear their table. I wonder. Mikoto glanced sideways at the table, which had so interested her husband. Who is this girl related to Naruto? You have a very interesting guy, Sasuke. Fugaku looked at his son carefully. You know, all the previous candidates for the role of your soulmate simply shouted about their love for you. But he didn't want to share his feelings with us. The man omitted the fact that the Uzumaki were simply not allowed to do this by Tsukuri's weak attempts to interrupt the conversation. This is a very good trait, not to lie. I would like this young man to teach you to tell the truth. Tell me honestly, how much does it cost? He is priceless, father. Sasuke grinned and was mentally amazed at how easy and pleasant it was to tell the truth. Naruto didn't believe in coincidences. He could, with a stretch, write off his mother's funeral, organized by her old friend, as an accident, because Anko spent the last 5 years abroad, and did not even suspect about the misfortune that happened to her best friend, and when she returned and found out, she decided to remind the whole world about her. And it didn't matter at all whether today's date corresponded to the planned event or not. Deep down, Uzumaki was grateful to her. He would not even be surprised to learn that everyone gathered at the table knew his mother. But Naruto attributed the presence of all the other acquaintances he met that evening to the influence of the Uchiha. Indeed, what could his former employer be doing at one of the far tables of the restaurant? After all, As far as Naruto knew, Kakashi Hatake hated such cultural establishments, and was much more willing to while away his evenings in some cheap beer bar. He even considers Suna an expensive pleasure, but here you are, at the parade, with a bottle of wine and some kind of book, for the sake of decency. It was also strange to see Nara Shikamaru, his old friend from his student days. There were times when they fought for the very last desk in the classroom in order to hide there behind the lush hairstyles of their classmates, and take a good nap. But the hostility lasted no more than a semester, and their further communication virtually came to naught. Naruto barely knew this guy. The only thing he knew was that he was the heir to Bright Gate, and is now the president of this company. So Sasuke works for him? Cool. Uzumaki really wanted not to be noticed. If that had happened, he might have believed that it was a coincidence that these people ended up here at this particular time, but Naruto didn't believe in coincidences for nothing. How can you not notice the person for whom you actually came? Shikamaru lazily waved his hand in greeting. Kakashi put the book down and stood up resolutely. What am I supposed to do? Exactly. For starters, just wash your hands. Smiling a little uncertainly at Shikamaru, and pretending that he had not noticed Kakashi, Uzumaki quickly turned off the intended path, walked past a row of empty tables, and after a couple of minutes went out into a small corridor, which, in fact, was his original goal. I hope he doesn't follow me. Naruto smiled nervously at his own reflection. Of course not. Although, I pretty much shook his nerves, and he spent money on lawyers. But no one asked him for this. Sorry. The Uzumaki shuddered and looked into the mirror again. Deidara stood next to him. He also washed his hands and glanced guiltily at his neighbor from time to time. I already forgot about him. Come on. Naruto shrugged and smiled disarmingly. I also like to make a mess. It's nothing yet, Sakura admitted honestly. When Mr. Fugaku was testing me, I did this. Have you tried it? Well, yes. Don't you know why these dinners are organized? Uzumaki shook his head negatively. Deidara sighed, shook his head, and continued. All in order to understand the sincerity of your feelings with Sasuke. Nonsense. Well, don't tell me. Sakura shook his head thoughtfully. For the last 4 years, Sasuke has been regularly participating in this so-called traditional family week. But there has never been such a thing that everything went smoothly. Can you imagine? It turns out that he paid all his partners to play the role of his soulmate. Deidara took some cool water into his hands, passed it through his fingers, and patted his wet palms on his cheeks, carefully peering into the Uzumaki's reflection, waiting for the blonde's reaction to his words. Naruto pretended to be intently washing his hands with soap. He knew everything that Sakura had just said, he knew even more, but Deidara should not have known about this. Moreover, he needed to somehow react to these words. How? The truth is that Sasuke barely told me about this traditional week. So I should be outraged that I'm being bought, right? What is he doing? Uzumaki asked slowly. Pays. Deidara tore off the napkin and wiped his hands. Pays. Naruto quickly returned to the hall. Now he knew exactly what he needed to do. This eccentric family came up with a wonderful test. Now he won't have to sit in this restaurant anymore. Wait. Sakura barely kept up with him, but Uzumaki did not seem to hear him. So we'll pay, right, Sasuke? Not caring that he was interrupting Itachi, Naruto began without preamble. And how much do you think I'm worth? What are you talking about? Sasuke mentally courted Sakura. Don't act like holy innocents. He didn't know about this? Mikoto frowned slightly. What if he really didn't know about it, and we are destroying an already fragile relationship? You just decided to use me. Damn, how hard it is to be indignant. How do girls manage to throw prolonged tantrums so easily? In my opinion, the easiest way is to punch him. But I can't because I love. Although people say, hitting means he loves. So maybe I should hit him? Naruto. Sasuke tried to appeal to common sense with his calmness. mentally amazed at how believably the guy who assured him was a terrible actor played. Listen, listen? You. Uzumaki arched his eyebrows skeptically. I don't want to see you. Uzumaki turned sharply on his heels, and just as quickly as he approached the table, he left the restaurant. He didn't know what to do next. On the one hand, he would not mind stopping this whole farce, since a wonderful opportunity had arisen for this, but on the other, he could not do it. The agreement was concluded for a month, which means that now they must make peace. And yet Naruto confidently walked around small groups of people, and without stopping, walked along the dimly lit street. For some reason he got it into his head that he needed to leave by taxi, and as luck would have it, the necessary cars were not in sight. Naruto! Sasuke still managed to catch up with him. He grabbed the guy by the hand, and when he turned around, the Uchiha, obeying an inner impulse, kissed him greedily. Crap! Uzumaki tried in vain to free his hand. What is he doing? The blonde leaned a little forward, actively responding to the HRC. What am I doing? He slightly pushed the brunette away from him, stopping this pleasant disgrace. And you said you were a bad actor? The Uchiha whispered in Naruto's ear. He portrayed indignation and resentment so believably, I even believed him. Yes, I believed myself. Uzumaki muttered and shuddered. Now that he stopped, the coolness of the autumn evening was clearly felt. Did you believe it? Sasuke mentally smiled. I would like you to sincerely believe that you are my boyfriend, not because of some agreement, but of your own free will. Frozen? The Uchiha noticed that the blonde was trembling and pulled him towards him, hugging him tightly. Let's go back. No. Naruto shook his head negatively, and didn't even think about breaking away. Of course, it was so warm in Sasuke's arms. I'm sorry, but I've passed. I can still endure your daddy's tricky questions, not notice your brother's malicious smiles, and try to make friends with. He hesitated, clearly trying to find the right definition, but not finding it, he simply continued. Deidara, I can even smile politely at your mother. But, no more. Fugaku stopped a couple of meters from the couple and listened to their conversation. Fortunately, this didn't require much effort. Naruto didn't even think about speaking in a barely audible whisper. It doesn't look like they had a fight. Mikoto had no reason to worry. It's a pity, I didn't hear the beginning of the conversation. The man sighed and came a little closer. Uzumaki began to speak more quietly. I don't want, Naruto continued quietly, to be in the same room with my former employer. We met then. Fugaku grinned. I don't want to think about why my old friend was just happy to see me. It was as if he was pushed against the wall and suddenly forced to become friends with me. Nara Shikamura finally listened to my advice. Fugaku nodded with satisfaction. I always knew that nature did not deprive young Nar of brains. But the worst thing is. Naruto hesitated for a moment, but still continued. My mother's unscheduled wake. Not the best investment. Fugaku recalled. God, how indifferently and aloofly he said it. My proposal must have hurt him greatly. It was an illegal hit. I'll have to apologize. Naruto. Sasuke didn't know what to say. The blonde buried his forehead in the Uchiha's chest. I was shocked, and pleasantly surprised. I always knew she had amazing friends. He sighed and continued grumpily. But it would be just wonderful if they got together in May. However, for her this no longer matters. I'm sorry. Sasuke hugged the Uzumaki closer to him. If I only knew. I wouldn't let you see this. It wouldn't hurt you so much. Hurt? Naruto asked in surprise and calmly looked into the brunette's eyes. It doesn't hurt me. It doesn't hurt anymore. He shook his head. It was painful then, 5 years ago, when it became clear that no millions could save her life. The blonde sighed. But 5 whole years have passed since then, even a little more. I lost my mother. I was completely disappointed in money. He looked thoughtfully at Sasuke and suddenly smiled. But life goes on, and never ceases to amaze me. A week later, Fugaku, Having finished with the unexpected business and taking advantage of the fact that Sasuke had taken Naruto somewhere, again gathered the rest of the family in his office. Now he wanted to discuss the unpleasant incident that happened at the memorable dinner. Until now, he has not told anyone the whole truth, which he unwittingly became a witness by following his son. Fugaku wanted to apologize to Uzumaki, but had no idea how to do it. This is true. Deidara opened the office door. You just weren't paying attention. Well. Itachi slightly pushed the blonde forward. What? Mikoto turned around interestedly. Nothing. Itachi smiled. Dei just decided to play detective. He didn't take his eyes off Uzumaki for a week. The Uchiha sighed. I'm even jealous. He honestly admitted to his mother. And what did you notice? Fugaku arched his eyebrows skeptically, expecting to hear another nonsense. The Uchiha believed that Tsukuri was too stupid and had no place in the family. But he and Itachi, in due time, convinced him of the sincerity of their feelings, and Fugaku, reluctantly, accepted the choice of his eldest son. When Naruto's phone rings, he always flinches and tenses, and only when he sees who is calling him does he relax. There is nothing strange or unusual in this. Itachi shrugged. Do you think so? Mikoto asked incredulously and gracefully took the empty chair. Fugaku put his hands on the table. I think I can explain it. Sit down. It didn't take long to tell him what he had learned a week ago. Mikoto listened to her husband's story, remembered the conversations at the table, and turned pale. Itachi frowned with displeasure. He could not have imagined that everything would turn out this way. But he knew that on that very day, a wake was being held in the restaurant. Deidara, interested in the behavior of Uzumaki, found in the story told only an interesting answer to his question. Tsukuri came to the conclusion that Naruto, out of habit, was waiting for his mother to call, and that is why he reacted so strangely to the ringing phone. I believe that we need to apologize to Uzumaki. Fugaku summed up his story. Yes, absolutely. Mikoto nodded in agreement. Apologize? Asked Deidara. Will not work. He's not the kind of person who needs anyone's apology. He's right about that. Fugaku involuntarily agreed with Tsukuri. Perhaps. Itachi nodded and smiled contentedly. But I think I know what can be done. Mikoto smiled encouragingly at her son. We can both apologize and finally make sure that Sasuke is not pranking us. Itachi smiled at the frowning Deidara. I have long wanted to give my brother such a gift. Let's go to a resort. Not bad. Fugaku nodded. Amazing. Mikoto perked up. We will simply interrupt unpleasant impressions with positive emotions. Shall we go too? Deidara clarified. Certainly. Itachi rubbed his hands in anticipation. I'll immediately start processing all the necessary documents. He took out his phone. Have you already decided where we will go? Mikoto was surprised. Of course, Itachi responded, looking through his contacts with concentration. No. The woman interrupted him. Do not say. Let it be a surprise.